Hello there, I'm here today with my 2004 Honda Accord EX. This will also cover the 2003 through 2007 models as well. This is with the rear brake disc setup. Today's topic is going to be in regard to your brake caliper with a little bit of information in regard to your emergency brake as well. Basically what was happening with my vehicle is the piston on the caliper actually froze and it was all the way out, and it was basically applying the pads and basically was chewing the pads up as we drove down the road. The simple was basically I just had to put new rotors and pads on the vehicle, and obviously I did have to replace the brake caliper. I'm going to give you a few details and some things that may help you in terms of actually replacing this component. Obviously I've already have mine installed, but I will walk you through some things that may simplify it or may help you better understand how to do it if you haven't. Basically the bolt size where your brake hose connects to the caliper, that's a 12 millimeter. I used a 12-point socket. The bolts that are on my caliper for your upper and your lower slide pin, that's a 14 millimeter 12-point, and the upper and the lower bolt for your holding bracket, that is a 14 millimeter 12-point. I used a 3/8 inch ratchet, and I suggest using some extensions. The lower bolt on the holding bracket is a little difficult to get to with just a socket and ratchet. Basically I would recommend that you lubricate your emergency brake cable where it comes through the bracket, and I will show that in a moment, with a little bit of penetrating fluid. I like liquid wrench. There's plenty to choose from. And lubricate that because it may be seized up in there, a little bit of surface rust, and it could be a little difficult to break free. I'm going to slide around here and show you a few basic things so that you'll have a general idea of what you need to do. Okay, let's see if we can get the light here. Show a little better. Okay, here you have a C-clip. You pry the C-clip out. You can basically wiggle the cable off the arm here. It's not very difficult to do. Let me move my finger out of the way so you can see it. Slip it over this, and basically the cable goes in to the holding bracket here that holds it in place. It's a very specific way. It has two flat sides and two round sides. So you have to stick the cable in so that it locks in the flat sides and the round side in the correct position. Obviously I've already installed mine, so I can't show exactly what it looks like, but hopefully you'll understand the general concept. Okay. A few other things that I would recommend, let me slide this light out of the way here, is if you do have rear disc brakes and or front disc brakes, this is a very handy tool. This is placed on your piston, and this is for pistons that actually screw in. And basically on the Honda Accord they have basically a plus design is what I call it. This tool is $13 at your local Napa store. This is a 3/8 socket extension that fits into that, and basically you will rotate your piston in clockwise so that it's fully seated. That means flat, because when you put new brake pads on, the piston has less distance to travel. Also, another thing I've read on some various automotive sites, people had some questions in regard to these set screws, and these things can be a real pain in the rear end if these have rusted in place. And I'm going to show and or share a few basic things that I do that make removing these a little easier. Sorry if the lighting's a little out of hand there. Basically what I do is I take a Phillips head screwdriver and a pair of channel locks, and I use the channel locks that have the rounded bite on them. I could disconnect it here in a minute, but I'm going to just let you see what I use. Okay, so basically what I recommend, you lubricate your set screws that hold the rotor tight to the hub. Let it sit for a little while. Sometimes I've even used a propane torch just to heat it up a little bit. And then what you do, put your screwdriver in place like such, put your hand on the one hand holding the screwdriver straight, use your other hand to break loose the screw. Most times it will break free. There are occasions where I've had to use a chisel. This is a little larger size chisel than I would use, but basically I would take the chisel and with a hammer get into one of the notches of the screw. If it started to strip out, tap it tight in there. Obviously you want to keep in mind you're going to back these screws out counterclockwise, so try to get it on one of the edges so that when you're tapping it with a hammer, it's easier to basically rotate it counterclockwise out. That's another trick I use. Worst case scenario, I've actually had to drill out the set screws with, drill bits. Basically, I had to break the metal enough that I could use the chisel to break it free, and that's a worst case scenario. I've never had a set screw actually break the thread off. It's always generally the head of the screw basically is just rusted to the rotor metal and it just doesn't want to break free. Basically, another thing is that you may have the possibility of, say, your emergency brake doesn't feel like it's working on one side or the other. Basically, set your parking brake to one click, and basically you should have a light drag on the rotor. Now granted, this is, the emergency brake's not applied right now, but just as an example, if you have the light drag, you shouldn't need to make any adjustments as long as your emergency brake is within 7 to 9 clicks, and that's what Honda says should be normal. I have found on my vehicle generally the emergency brake fully applied is 4 to 5 clicks, and it's very firm at that, and it's been like that as long as we've owned a car, which is since 2004. So you may have a scenario where you're not sure whether you have a faulty caliper or a faulty emergency brake. Well, I can hopefully give you some details. I just replaced the caliper on this vehicle last week, and basically the emergency brake was coming up 7 to 9 clicks, and basically with the emergency brake fully on, I could come out here and rotate this rotor all day long, and basically the parking brake mechanism on the caliper wasn't working. Now keep in mind, this is a brand new remanufactured caliper, so basically my philosophy is that the parking brake mechanism prior to the new part being installed was working properly. And granted, the cable could have stretched, but I found that to be most unlikely. So basically I went and picked up this replacement caliper, number 2, installed it, reinstalled my cable through the mounting bracket, finished up the brake work. Everything is back as it was. So it could be that if your parking brake doesn't seem to be working properly, you could have one of 2 items going on. You could basically just have a faulty parking brake mechanism on your caliper, or it could be the cable. But I will say the caliper from AutoZone was $104, and that's with the $30 core charge added into it. And the left-hand side emergency brake cable was $28 plus tax. Basically, I'm going to take my reman caliper back, and basically the warranty pays for the number 2. But hopefully this has been beneficial and I haven't left anything out. And if you have any questions, by all means, please ask them. I will do my best to assist you. And thanks a lot. Have a good day.